everybody, and welcome to Commodity Culture, where our goal is to make you a better investor in the commodities space. My name is Jesse Day. Before we dive in, standard disclaimer, nothing here is investment advice. Do your own due diligence. We bring you the information. You do your own research. And today's guest is the CEO of Tinka Resources, an exploration and development company with its flagship property being the 100% owned Ayawilca zinc-silver-tin project in central Peru. It's Dr. Graham Carman. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much, Jesse. That was really nicely said. It's nice to join you today. Thank you.
Yes, great to have you here. I want to dive into, of course, Tinka Resources and what you're doing. I first want to touch on the commodities that you are involved in, zinc, silver, and tin. I want to start off with zinc because this is a commodity that is very under-discussed and underappreciated, I feel, by a lot of market participants. Could you start by giving us an investment thesis for zinc? Why is it an important commodity at this point in time?
Well, zinc is really an important commodity, Jesse. We call it the guardian of green infrastructure. It prevents iron from rusting. It's kind of one of those boring but really important commodities. So in galvanization, that's still the main use, but there is a growing use in renewables, renewable energy use. For example, 4 tons of zinc goes into one of those offshore turbines that turns flying into Heathrow or wherever you fly around the world. Solar panels, cars, and even in zinc air batteries, there's potential for batteries down the line. So it is an important industrial mineral. It's the fourth largest of all the base metals. It's a commodity that we need. It's a critical metal. There's been very few discoveries in the world in the last few years, and a lot of the zinc mines, most of them by far, are really old mines that have been around for ages, with zinc grades dropping and resources diminishing and so on and so forth. So it's one of these kind of forgotten minerals, metals that is very important. We at Tinka have a one of the largest undeveloped zinc deposits going around, and it is going to be a mine, just a question of time. And it's a really important commodity and project for zinc.
Well, let's touch on tin as well. This is a metal that actually does have a niche following on X. There's like a tin community on Twitter there, but not very often in the spotlight. A few of the people I've talked to on this show are actually very bullish on the tin market. Walk us through why tin is also a vital resource, and any light you could shed on current supply-demand dynamics when it comes to tin would also be great.
Well, we do have tin in our deposit, Ayawilca, as well. It's in a separate part of the deposit. There's a zinc zone and a tin zone that we put into the PEA recently. So it does add value to the project, and there's a lot of upside for tin in our project. Tin is the most valuable of all the base metals, actually by quite a way. It's 4 times the value of copper. It's a much smaller market. The main suppliers of tin are Malaysia, China, Peru, and mostly from kind of dredging over there in Asia. There's some hard rock tin mines in Peru and also in the Congo. Western supplies of tin are pretty thin on the ground. Peru's one of those places where tin is produced in a let's call it a Western country, or Western Hemisphere anyway. It's essential for solders, so the electronic circuits and the sorters or solders as we refer to them here in Australia. That there is no replacement for tin solder. So that's the predominant use for tin. As I mentioned, it's the most valuable of all base metals, highly sought after, and very few discoveries and new deposits coming online. So again, for those who believe in in a world that requires more resources, more high tech metals, and tin is certainly one of those. It's a critical metal in most parts of the world, including the US and Canada and Australia and Europe. We have a growing tin resource, and it does add significant value to the project and has a lot of upside as well.
Yeah, I think that as we move forward and we see commodities come more and more into the spotlight, because I think the mainstream press is still not discussing commodities enough. Even gold and silver, with gold reaching new all-time highs, it's barely being discussed on mainstream financial media. But I think as we start to see this rotation from the tech sector, these hot AI stocks, into real tangible assets, I think we're going to see commodities like tin and zinc get discussed a lot more. I do want to move on to silver here. This is a commodity that is very discussed, especially on this channel. We've recently seen silver crack $30 and maintain it at the time being, at the time of this recording. Of course, it continues to lag behind gold. I've spoken to some who say this is a generational opportunity when it comes to the silver market. Sentiment is basement, rock bottom. It can't get lower. The amount of despondent comments I get on this channel whenever I talk about silver is proof that people seem to hate silver at this point in time. So a lot of people are saying this is a real contrarian play right now. How do you currently view the future of the silver market?
Look, it's an interesting one. I've been following silver for a long time as well. I do believe that silver is going to have a run quite soon. We also have silver in our project, and silver does add value as part of as a lead concentrate in our PEA, and we have some high grade veins and structures that have silver in them in our project. We think that silver plays this game, doesn't it, between industrial use and precious metal use. It kind of gets one each way. It's certainly an interesting commodity for sure, and in particular once the US dollar and starts to decrease in value perhaps, and some of these tech stocks lose a bit of heat. Silver is certainly one to watch. So you definitely want to have it in your portfolio.
Yeah, completely agree with you, and I do want to circle back to what I just discussed and what you just brought up there, which was this coming commodities super cycle. For those who want to be perhaps hyperbolic about it, the narrative around this has been quite pervasive, many pointing out that current valuations in the broad market simply cannot go on forever. It's amazing to me because when we look throughout various stock market bubbles in history, this seems to be right up there. It's a little bit, I don't know if you call it alarming, that many market participants, I think particularly retail investors, but even down to institutions, are not seemingly students of history. And a lot of people believe that this time is different. We're going to ride the Magnificent Seven to the moon. But if history is any indicator, these things always end in tragedy. A lot of people are seeing a rotation up ahead when that does occur into commodities. Do you see that playing out as well, this whole commodity super cycle?
Oh, absolutely. It's going to happen. It's just a question of time. No one, if I had a crystal ball, it would be a nice thing to have. But, as to when it's going to happen, it will happen. It's just a question of when. Is it later this year? Is it next year, the year after? I mean, there's no one knows for sure. But the signs are good with the inflation starting to make its way back down. Gold is running hard, right? I mean, we're at all-time gold highs. Gold almost always leads. If people want to look at the history of these cycles, gold every time has led the way. And here we are again. It's leading the way, and the base metals will follow, and some of these other metals as well. So, absolutely, we're going to have another super cycle. The resources and the demand is not diminishing, and the supply of most metals is not going up, and it's a finite kind of supply for resources. They're only going to end up being in more demand, Jesse. So it's just a question of time.
Yes, I definitely feel the same way. I do want to discuss how Tinka Resources fits into all of this. Let's start, for those unfamiliar with the company, if you could give us an overview.
Okay, our flagship project in Peru is called Ayawilca. Tinka discovered it a few years back. We're continuing to build the resource. We just put out an updated PEA early in 2024. We have 6.5 billion pounds of zinc in resources. It's one of the largest undeveloped zinc projects in the Americas. We also have tin and silver in a separate resource area. So the PEA we put out, as I mentioned, early in 2024. So it is a truly polymetallic deposit. 80% of the value is in the zinc. Around 10 or 11% of the value is in the tin, and about another 8 or 9% of the value is in the silver, with a tiny wee bit in the lead. So it is truly polymetallic. Zinc is the predominant commodity and resource. There is huge amount of upside still, and we're working to unravel that value, to our shareholders.
And you recently updated the PEA for the Ayawilca project. Walk us through that and the economic upside potential of the project.
The economics are very robust. It was $433 million US dollars post-tax as an NPV, 8% NPV, with a reasonably modest initial capex of about 380 million US. It's sensitive to zinc price. We used a conservative zinc price of $1.30 per pound, which is about where the current spot price is. If the spot price goes up a lot, obviously the NPV goes up. The IRR is about 27% post-tax, so again, really robust numbers. The tin, as I mentioned, does add value. We produce 3 concentrates: a zinc concentrate, a tin concentrate. We would produce, if this was producing, a zinc concentrate, a tin concentrate, and a silver lead concentrate. There's a smelter 250 kilometers by road from the project. A zinc smelter. We're only 250 kilometers from a port, so we've got options as to where we send our concentrates. Road access is extremely good. We are in the high Andes, but there's good road access. The public road goes right through the project, and we've got options as to where we take the concentrates. There's also a railhead about 50 kilometers away. We have power to site. It's a greenfield site, but the infrastructure is really quite amazing. For a greenfield site, power to site. There's water availability in central Peru. It's not like the high deserts of Chile and Argentina. Central Peru, you get half a meter to a meter of rain every year in the wet seasons. So there's lots of good things about it, and importantly, upside. There's really good upside to the project in terms of new discoveries will be made. I should also mention, Jesse, that we have 2 strategic investors. Both of these investors own 18 to 19% each. They're mining specialists in Peru. Both of them have mines within 40 kilometers of Ayawilca. So our nearest neighbors have taken strategic stakes in us. So that should tell people that this is going to be a mine one day, and our local mining companies really like the project. So that should provide some comfort as well.
Absolutely. Now, talk to us about Central Peru as a jurisdiction, because some investors do get nervous when stepping outside of North America. Talk to us about your relationship with the local government, how supportive they are of your endeavors and of mining in general, and your relationship with regulators in the local community.
Let's talk about the local communities. Tinka's been working here for a number of years. We have 2 communities that we work with on a win-win basis. We have agreements with both of those communities. We work closely with them. We have for a number of years. We have full access to the project. We employ the community members, particularly when we're doing drill programs, and also just to help with the camp. We have quite a large camp up on site where we can house about 50 odd people. So we have the community members, acting as watchmen for the camp and all that kind of thing. Cooks, cleaners, helpers around the camp. Plus, we also contribute to social programs, education programs, health programs for the mums and in particular, and the elderly and the children. So we do as much as we can to help the people that I guess people that are live fairly simply, but they're healthy people. But there's not the main thing is jobs. There's very few jobs around, and so employment is really key. And we have strong support for us to develop a mine out there because the people know that there's going to be opportunities for employment, for better education for the kids, and for for better health and services. So jurisdiction wise, we're 200 and 250 kilometers away from Lima. Those of you who know Peru. Lima's a huge city, and once you get out of Lima, you're very quickly into kind of rural country, particularly when you're up in the mountains, and sometimes the trickle down effect hasn't really happened in some of these rural communities in terms of the spread of wealth. So that's something that a project like us and a company like Tinka can really make a difference, in terms of fairly modest, let's be honest, modest at the moment investments, because obviously we operate on shareholder funds and we've got, we don't have any revenue or anything like that yet. So we can only do what we can do, but we do, I think, a very good job working with our local communities, Jesse.
Fantastic. Well, talk to us about the team behind Tinka Resources, starting with yourself and your own background, and how you plan to leverage the team's experience and expertise to drive the project forward.
Well, okay, you mentioned me at the very top end. I'm a doctor, PhD, geologist. I worked on one of the world's largest gold deposits during its discovery in Papua New Guinea, Lahir Island. It's one of the largest gold deposits in the world these days, operated by Newmont. So I was fortunate to have some really good experience back then. Then in the last 20 years, I've lived and worked in Peru. Or 20 out of my last 30 years, I've lived and worked in Peru. Worked for major companies, Rio Tinto, mid-tier companies, and junior companies. So there's very few gringos know Peru as well as I do. I can tell you that. I've been all over stomped all over the country, and I have four really key managers, actually five, but the four key guys: a GM, a project manager, an exploration manager, and a community relations manager. And I must also mention my office manager, who's a lady, does a fantastic job. They're all Peruvians. We work very closely together. I speak fluent Spanish, and we work very well together, leveraging our expertise. Mostly geologists, geologists and project managers, and we have a camp. We have a camp, and we have a core yard, and we have an office in Lima. So we're a relatively small team, but we have a really good, close knit team. As I mentioned, we're leveraging all those things that we can do to maximize project development and push the project forward.
And is the ultimate goal with this project to enter development yourselves and start producing the zinc concentrates, the tin as well as the silver lead concentrates? Is the goal to get acquired by a larger company? How do you see that playing out?
Look, it's a good question. I think ultimately we will get acquired. we need to push the project forward and de-risk it as much as possible, make it as attractive as possible, make the resource as good as it can get to, and de-risk a number of areas, including the metallurgy. Not that the metallurgy is a risk at all, because it's actually very straightforward. But some of the geotech or the hydrology and the community areas, and acquiring land, all these things. That the further we can de-risk it, and especially the resource, we see that as a key catalyst. So, as I mentioned, we've got 2 strategic investors now. There's still room for others. People say, well, is it going to be one of those 2 guys that buy you out? It may be. But it's not really up to me to talk about them. All I can say is those guys are supportive. We get interest from lots of different companies, and I think we're really an exploration team, right? We're not really mine developers per se. We can take this project to a certain point, potentially pre-feasibility stage. We could do that. But if we were to go into a mining stage, we'd need to change the team fairly significantly. So we're not ready to do that yet. We've got to maximise the value, maximise the resources I've already mentioned as best we can, and let's see where we end up, Jesse.
Yeah, I like that clear vision and knowing where your limitations are. I think that's very important. What upcoming catalysts and news flow should investors, potential shareholders be watching out for from the company?
On the news flow catalysts, we've been quiet for a little while, but we're about to come out with some news quite soon. We're planning another drill program focusing on one particular area to increase the grade in one particular area. We believe that the resource and part of the zinc deposit and also the silver deposit is quite severely understated. So we're looking to I guess optimize, improve that resource because it will have a material impact on the economics of the project if we're able to do that. So that's some catalyst coming forward. The other thing, we also have a greenfields project. It's a copper gold project, only 20, 30 kilometers away from Ayawilca. It's adjacent to it, so it's easy for us to access. It's a new discovery. It's on our website. It's called Sylvia, the Sylvia Copper Gold project. It's immediately along strike from Antamina. It has some really interesting gold, high-grade gold copper at surface, never been drilled before. We're expecting that we're going to get the drill permit approved in the next few months to be able to drill test Sylvia next year. So that's an exciting development. So, the exact timing is still a little bit unclear, but the listeners should definitely be keeping an eye on that project, and take a look at our website if you want to take a look at the geology and some details on Sylvia.
Yeah, I will be putting a link to the website in the description below so people can check it out. I'd like to end by opening the floor to you. Is there anything else you think it's important for potential shareholders to know about Tinka Resources?
Our flagship project, Ayawilca, is a really good zinc dominant polymetallic project. We're undervalued, significantly undervalued. I know lots of companies are, but we're trading at less than 0.1 NAV. This is a project that is going to be a mine. It's a project that is very scarce. There's very, very few zinc assets of this quality sitting out there. You could put them, on a few fingers of one hand. These sorts of quality projects sitting out there, especially in junior companies. It's in a mining belt, right? The Peru is the third largest zinc producer on the planet. So from 20 or 30 mines, there's 3 or 4 major mines, and Ayawilca could be one of those major mines in the future, and will be, right? So it's just a question of time. plus we've got the copper gold angle with our other project that potentially could be a spin out at some point. We've got strong investor support from our major shareholders, from our strategic shareholders, and there's going to be some news and catalysts coming out very, very soon. So, I think it's a very compelling story, Jesse.
Well, as I mentioned, I'll put a link to the website in the description below, as well as Tinka Resources' social media, so people can follow the company there as well. It's been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much, Graham, for coming on and sharing your knowledge with the audience.
Thanks a lot, Jesse. Good to be here. Thank you very much.
Commodity Culture is a series on commodities and natural resources. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're always up to date with the latest episodes.